Hi, everybody. This is Barbara Drazga with the Bundle Masterclass and DealDivaWholesale.com. And today I have with me this super cool dude. If you probably recognize him if you're in the Bundle Masterclass, Tyler Henderson from Sellerlabs. And these are the guys who did Scope. You know, I always talk about Scope, the keyword research and more tool. So they have Tyler has graciously agreed to come on a webinar today with me and talk about advertising on Amazon 101. I know there's a lot of confusion about it, and I've gotten a lot of questions from folks on different ways you can drive traffic to your listings and not just rely on Amazon's organic traffic. And so I know a little bit, enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be an expert. So I found Tyler here, and Tyler is definitely more well-versed at pay-per-click, Amazon pay-per-click than I. So he's agreed to put together a presentation for us today and kind of get us up to speed. So dig in, grab a glass of water, a pen and paper, and I'm just going to toss it over to him. Tyler, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to talk about today.
Awesome, Barbara. Thanks. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you coming and letting me talk to your audience. Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about Sponsored Products 101. Hopefully just get you in the right mindset and the right data points, because data is so important, especially when selling on Amazon. I'm sure that's something that Barbara talks about. Like it's equal parts intuition and then also backing that intuition up with data. And so that's like a big thing that I like to talk about when I'm talking to people about Amazon. And so today we're going to be talking a lot about the data portion of it and how to set up yourself for success, and then also how to interpret that, whether you're successful or not. And, you know, a lot of people get caught up on the fact that maybe the first time they do it, they're not successfit. And they're like, oh, well, it just doesn't work for me. Well, it's like, well, no, you have to make iterative changes. And over time, you're going to get better at it, right? It is pretty hard. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And we'll get started.
With that, even though Tyler said it is pretty hard, I don't want you guys to be discouraged. Totally. Everything that we learned, like when you first started learning how to sell on Amazon, there was a little bit of a learning curve and it was frustrating. Absolutely. So anytime you learn something new, just be okay that there's a learning curve and it could be frustrating, but get to the other end of it. So I'm going to shut up now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me share my screen. All right. So here we go. All right. So, this is very easily titled Advertising on Amazon 101, right? Like this is your first entry-level class. Think of this as your freshman level class into advertising. So first of all, a little bit about us, a little bit about me. I'm Tyler Henderson. I've been working in e-commerce stuff basically my entire life, which is something that's kind of crazy to say. You know, whether I started out doing like eBay and stuff like that to like help pay my way through college and stuff like that. And now I'm working with Sellerlabs. I've been with them for 3 years. Sellerlabs has been around for 5 years total. Feedback Genius, our oldest product, has been around for 5 years, which is insane. And I've been with them for 3 of those years. Last year, we worked with over 40,000 active Amazon sellers and managed over $7 billion in Amazon sales in 2017. So we talked to a absolute ton of sellers. And so all the stuff that we're telling you are these best practices, and everything I'm going to touch on today are these best practices that we've built over time talking to all these different sellers. So here's what you can expect from our talk today. One, what are sponsored products? Two, where can you find them even? So even if you're coming into this with no knowledge of what sponsored products are, maybe you've heard a little bit of talk about them over time, we want you to be able to say, okay, now I know what they are. I know where to find them. I know why I should be using them. And then finally, I know how to avoid the common pitfalls that are associated with them. So first of all, what are sponsored products, right? We hear a lot of different terms: PPC, sponsored products, headline search. What are they? So there are 3 ways that you can drive traffic to your listings. You can drive them from off-site traffic, right? So that's either having your own website, your own blog, going on someone else's blog, having that featured there, running advertising on on Facebook or Google AdWords. And then there's organic traffic, which is building your listing, optimize your listing so that people organically can find your products when they search the key terms. And then there's paid traffic, which is what we're going to be talking about today mostly, right? Which is headline search ads, product display ads, sponsored product ads. These are like, you can pay to be at the top of whatever given keyword you want today. And that's what I always like to tell people is like, people ask me, what's the best way to get ranked for a product? And I say, well, you can be number one for whatever search term you want right now if you want, but maybe that's not what you want to do right this second. So let's kind of take a look here. What's the easiest and most cost-effective way to do this is using sponsored product ads. And what I like to tell people is, if you're not currently running sponsored product ads, you're running behind. And so why am I saying that, right? Why are you running behind if you're not running sponsored product ads? Because here's the numbers. Here are just the facts that we have about sponsored product ads on Amazon today. Amazon's ad business is growing faster than both Google's and Facebook's. They're set to outpace them and pass them within the next 5 years, which is insane when you think about how much money and revenue that Google and Facebook made from advertising, that Amazon's only growing quickly enough to make more than them in the next 5 years. Secondly, Amazon sponsored product ads account for 82% of its marketplace ad spend. So that's pretty crazy. So there's like all these different like little niche things that you can do, and people are say AMS and AMG, and there's like all these different like lingos that people throw around, but sponsored product ads are the lion's share of those, right? And these are the sponsored product ads, are these third-party ads that you have access to as a seller that you can just appear at. And we're going to talk a little bit about where you can find those in just a second. So that's exactly where we're at now. So sponsored product ads you can find in a couple different places. So we've got this first ad right here at the top, and that's called a product display or a headline search ad. What that's going to let you do, that's kind of at the top of the funnel, right? That's the consideration phase, where you're saying, oh, I searched for apple slicer or a kitchen utensil, and we're showing you something to consider, like, hey, just so you know, this is our brand awareness. We have all these different products you might be interested in, right? You have a apple slicer, you have a watermelon slicer, you have an egg slicer, etc. And then we have below that what you normally think of when you think of sponsored product ads, which are these ads that are like targeted. They look like normal listings in finger quotes, right? You're paying to be at the top of the search results. Beyond that, there's a couple more little niche ones, right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen these sponsored products related to this item. If you scroll down on the product page, right, that's where all of these ads are. And then there's more sponsored products related to these Prepworks Progressive Apple Slicer, right? So these are just more displays that are actually on your competitor's product listing that you have access to by running sponsored product ads. So there's kind of three different phases, which is one, consideration. That's the headline search that we talked about. That's showing up at the top saying, hey, look at our brand. Then there's the actual display on the listings, which lets you try to make the sale. And then there's one where it's like someone's actually going to buy your competitor and you're showing up beneath them. And so those are kind of three different stages of the sales funnel. So now that we know that they're important, we know that where they're at, how do we win with sponsored product ads? And I think that's a great question. And what I like to tell people is the easiest way to win with sponsored product ads is spam. And you might say to yourself, how is a gross gelatin-like meat substance going to help me win on sponsored product ads? And it's no, not that spam. What is spam? Spam is a system, a process, and metrics, right? So a system, process, and metrics are going to be what you need to reach your goals. So in order to reach and repetitively achieve your goals in business, you have to have a system in place that is proven to reach those goals. And from there, you need to break down that system into individual processes that can be tweaked or automated. This is kind of what I'm talking about at the beginning, right? Where it's like you might not be successful, but you need to tweak and automate those so that you can be successful in the future. And then from there, you need to know the metrics by which you're judging success, so that you need to know where your faults are as you're doing this, so that you can make adjustments to your system and process. So it's system, process, and metrics is going to make you successful on sponsored products on Amazon. So the truth of the matter is this. We need to get this out of the way. And we kind of talked about this a little bit at the top. Sponsored products are hard, right? If you're coming from a background of paid advertising, it's probably still hard. If you're not coming from a background of paid advertising, it's definitely hard because you're coming into all these new terms and metrics. and things, and Amazon just doesn't exactly make it clear. But don't worry, we're going to help you with that today. But the first time I downloaded an advertising report on Amazon, I looked a lot like this. Yeah, okay, ACOS, that's a word, the percentage sign. All right, I know some of these words. Yeah, I'm killing it. I was not killing it, actually. My ACOS was through the roof. But you know what? That's okay. It's got better over time. So the truth of the matter is this. There's lots of data. There's new terminology. A lot of people just try and give up. And it's a complex field where there's overlapping ideas. There's hundreds of gurus, lots of systems. And it just leads to a lot of misdirection in the space. All these systems, all these gurus, the fact that it's such a new thing in the space, just a lot of general confusion. One person will say, do this, and the other will say, no, never do that. And the ultimate thing is, it doesn't really matter so long as you have a system, process, and metrics in place, right? If you can scientifically look at what you've done previously, even if you haven't had this up to now, if you instill this and start looking at what you've done previously through the metrics and the process, and start building processes and then build a system around it, you can still salvage all that data, that good data that you have. That doesn't change the value of the data that you've gotten just because you didn't go into it with a strategy to begin with. So that's the good news. So let me give you a simple system. And we're going to dig into all these a little bit more in depth as we go. 1, determine your target ACOS. 2, structure your campaigns for success. 3, use a profitable keywords and user search terms. 4, optimize bids to drive traffic. And 5, check campaigns once or twice a week. So it sounds pretty easy, right? I don't need to go into more depth. No, I probably will anyway. So determining your target ACOS. What is ACOS? It's advertising cost of sale. There's a lot of kind of confusion about that. Advertising cost of sale. So how do you determine your target ACOS? Before I ask that, a lot of people ask me, what should my target ACOS be? And I think before we do that, we kind of need to first define our business goal. But because before you can determine...
Actually, I think before you do that, I think you're used to hearing this terminology, but we have a lot of people who have no clue what an ACOS is or what the heck that acronym even, how do you spell it? So why don't you tell us that?
Yeah, totally. So ACOS or ACOS is your advertising cost of sale. So that's for every sale that you make on Amazon, how much did it cost you to make that sale, right? How many clicks and what was the actual cost that it was to get that sale?
And it's shown in a percentage mode, a percentage.
Right. So it's shown as a percentage of the sale value.
So which is better, a lower percentage or a higher percentage?
Well, that's kind of what we're going to get into here. I think that generally speaking, people want it to be as low as possible, which is reasonable. But I think that you have to have a realistic understanding of what your ACOS can be.
Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're kind of getting into right now, actually. So I think before you can determine what your target ACOS is, because some people say, Tyler, I want my ACOS to be 5%, right? That's what I want it to be. And they have no real idea besides the fact that someone just blindly made that statement or their friend told them that they had a 5% ACOS. But before you can really determine what you want that to be or what it should be, what you should be going for, you really need to know what your business goal is going into it. So if you're looking to blitz the market, if you're trying to launch a new product, make sure your product shows up for anything remotely related to your product, you got to be a little bit more okay with a high ACOS. If you want to just dip your toes in and maybe learn a little bit and make iterative changes before you go all in and start running a lot of advertising, then you're gonna have to you'll be a little bit more okay with a lower ACOS. So part of it just comes from an issue of where you want your profit margin to be. But another part of it is like how, what's your business goal? Are you trying to like move as many sales to start raking organically? So should profit margin be a concern? That's another huge question that I get asked. So a lot of people build their ACOS as follows. ACOS should be less than profit margin, right? So they're trying to figure out how they can keep their ACOS below their profit margin, right? Because that's generally speaking what people think. So your profit margin is after all of your cost of goods, after your Amazon fees and everything, how much money you're making. A lot of people say your ACOS should be lower than or equal to your profit margin. And people ask me, Tyler, is this how I should be looking at it? And my answer is, it depends. And you say, well, that's not very specific. Like, are you just going to dance around all my hard questions? And I'm going to say no. But you do need to know when you should be willing to have a crazy ACOS or when you should be able to shoot for under profit margin. So here's an example I like to give. This is supplements, right? Protein powder, amino energy, all of these things are supplements. If you're not aware, supplements are pretty incredibly expensive, hyper competitive market. People are always wanting to get into them because there's a really high profit margin. But because of that, it's hyper competitive. And to the point that I just generally don't ever recommend that people go into selling supplements. But there's a reason why it's a really popular niche to sell in, is because people really like doing this, right? I buy protein powder at least once every month, probably closer to every 2 weeks. And it means that because it's so competitive, it means that you might be willing to go above even 100% ACOS, right? Maybe you're willing to pay 200% even when you make that first sale, because especially with these replenishable items, people aren't just making one product, right? I talked about how I buy protein powder. I've bought the same protein powder every month or 2 weeks to a month for the last couple years, right? So once they've acquired me as a customer, I keep going back. And so even if you're paying 100%, 200% of your ACOS, you might be willing to do that because you know that people are coming back and ordering monthly, and you're going to make far more than that back. So I think that's a really great example of when you say, okay, well, just because my profit margin is X, I'm okay with paying more to acquire this customer. So I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. So let's talk about structuring your campaigns for success. So step 2 is structuring your campaigns for success. I cannot underestimate the importance of this. You can throw money at a campaign all you want, but if the campaign isn't set up correctly, it's not going to work. So the most important thing to structuring a campaign for success actually has nothing to do with your actual ad, in my opinion. It's having a listing that converts. So optimizing your listings for conversion first is always the first step I tell people before we start running advertising, because you could have the best system in place. You could be using the best tools, be having the top of the world PPC person coming and helping you. But if you get people on your listings, but they never convert, then you're not going to have any sales because they didn't convert. So that's why. So who's buying your products, right? That's the question. The why is, why do we want to optimize for listings first? Because who's buying your products? Is it going to load? 1 second. Who's buying your products? Humans, right? There is another human being on the other side. Yes, Amazon's algorithm has something to say about indexing, but guess what? If you're making sales, the rest will kind of fall into place. So again, the question is, what good is driving all the traffic in the world if you can't make any sales? I have a great example of this. Do you remember Barbara, do you remember the ad, I shipped my pants, the Kmart.com ad, where it was the talking about, it was like an old lady and she was like, I shipped my pants. And it was talking about buying her pants online.
Yeah, I totally didn't see that, but I just had a vision of the old lady who did the commercial, where's the beef, doing that.
Yeah, totally. So it's this joke where it's like all of these people going, oh, I shipped my pants, I shipped my bed, like, because they bought all their bed.
Oh my God, I love it.
And so it's like this really funny viral ad. I think it was a Super Bowl ad from a couple of years ago. But the problem was it went viral.
Didn't seem to help Kmart at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem, right? They were telling people to go to Kmart.com to buy stuff, and Kmart.com, not very good. And so even though they had this crazy viral ad that's still super funny, they still went bankrupt within a year of this ad going out. So it's like a big win for the advertising agency, not a big win for Kmart.
Well, and I have another analogy that's it might be a teeny bit funny or crass, depending on your perspective, but it's kind of like these dating sites.
Totally, yeah.
Where you have this picture of this gorgeous person, very svelte and trim, and you're muscular and really put together, and in a certain age range, and then you have your first date with them, and they're not even remotely like put together, or
Totally.
it just doesn't convert.
Yeah, that's it exactly, right? Like you can get in front of a bunch of people doing that, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a second date out of it.
There you go.
Exactly. So that's kind of the exact thing, right? So successful campaign, not successful listing. Those two things do not equate. So I like to group like products together as a first step towards doing this. So when I do this, I make sure that similar products or other child ASINs, so think t-shirts with different colors, are all grouped together in campaigns. That way they have relevant clicks and searches. So that's like the first big tip. Like once you've got your listings optimized, you want to group your like products together. And so make sure that, if you're selling a green t-shirt and a blue t-shirt and a red t-shirt, all of the same shirt, you want those all to be in the same ad, right? In the same group of campaigns. But if you're selling a green t-shirt and green shoes, you probably don't want those together. Does that make sense? I'm going to hope that it does. So
yes, it does. I'm just muting myself so you don't hear any background noise in my
You're just fine. You're just
keep going.
So we've grouped them together. Now let's continue to structure your campaigns for success. So when running your campaign, you want to have 3 different ad groups. This will help with your organization, right? This means that you can group all the keywords at the match type in one ad group, which means you can go back and change the bid for the ad group, and it'll affect all of those different keywords. So this can help you with your organization as you're moving terms around. You can just move from one term from one ad group to another, and it'll still stay together. So you have a campaign. It has 3 ad groups: a broad, a phrase, an exact. And then I like to run an auto-targeting campaign for that. Besides that, an auto-targeting campaign for one, and then a manual campaign as well. So this is like a big way to do that. So let's talk about using profitable keywords. Many of you know that there are keywords being used in sponsored product ads, but it actually goes deeper than that. If you have a broad match going on, you can see actual user search terms that are being searched for your product. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between the different types of search terms and keywords. So we've got a little map here, and let's talk about the difference between keywords and search terms, right? So look at this map, and we'll display the keyword that you're bidding on, apple slicer. Broad match, so each ring of these is a different type of broad match. So you've got broad match on the biggest rung, and then phrase in the middle, and then exact in the very middle. So a broad match for apple slicer would be apple slicer. It would be red slicer for apple. It would be slicer for red apples. It would be slicer case for Apple iPhone 6. So it's anything that includes the word apple, both the word apple and slicer in any order. So it has to have both of those words, but they can be in any order and include any other groups of words. Then we have phrase match, which means we have to have the word apple slicer, but including the phrase apple slicer in that order, right? So it has to have the words apple and slicer in that order, and then the other words can vary. So it can be apple slicers, 12-piece apple slicer, and as we get more away, adjustable apple slicer, manual apple slicer, and core remover. So that's a phrase match. So it has the phrase in there, but has other words as well. And then the exact match would be just those words. You're bidding on exactly those words: apple slicer, apple slicers, an apple slicer. Those are, and then misspellings therein. So you want to pinpoint the exact which user search terms and which are driving traffic to conversions. Actually, I think I kind of skipped over something here. I feel like we need to talk about what the difference between user search terms and what keywords are. So keywords are the words that you tell Amazon that you want to bid on, right? So that would be apple slicer in a broad phrase or exact. That's a keyword. And then a user search term, which you can get through the user search term reports, you can actually see the actual given things that people are searching on Amazon and clicking through to get to your listings. So you can see these would be the search terms, right? So people would say, okay, I want to bid on apple slicer, on anything including apple slicer. The actual search terms would be red slicer for apple. So someone searched that and then clicked on it and my ad was displayed. And then slicer for red apples. And so Amazon gives you this really cool report called the user search term report when you're running these broad phrase or auto campaigns. And it'll tell you all these user search terms that people are actually coming to your product for. And this is super powerful, right? Because then you're learning and you're taking this feedback, this feedback loop, right? Where you can say, okay, well, this one was really successful. This one was really not successful. I want to move the successful ones from an auto-targeting campaign or from a broad match campaign and move that to an exact match or a phrase match on my other campaigns. And I also want to take those keywords and use it, like I was talking about earlier, to re-optimize your listings. Because if you pay Amazon and they tell you, hey, people are like clicking on this search term a lot and they convert once they do it, then like you should probably make sure to have that search term pretty high up in your listing. So that's pretty important. So don't just get caught up on optimizing your keywords broadly, but you want to dig in and work on your search terms as well. So here's a little bit more in-depth picture of that so you guys can kind of take a see. So I'll hold it up here for a second. And I think it's pretty clear what I was talking about there. So again, in the top section here, these are the search terms that you're telling, or the keywords you're telling Amazon. And then the search terms are these smaller ones. Oh, I actually went back. So optimizing your bids to drive traffic. So whenever I optimize, I keep bids higher on well-performing keywords. If they're moving, if they're more competitive, you'll have to have a higher bid and you need to keep the bid higher so you can keep winning placement and continue to get clicks and conversions. If a keyword is not converting as well as you want, don't necessarily have to set it as a negative. A lot of people have this idea where just because something's not performing well, I need to set it as a negative. But that's not always the case. You can always just pause it, or you can lower the bid on it. So you're not spending as much on it, but you're still getting some more data on search terms that people are using, or, kind of learning about it from there. So, one of those things is maybe you want to drive the traffic. And so probably on the front end, those are going to be the longer tail search terms than keywords, just because you probably, it's going to be more expensive for the bigger ones for whatever your given niche is. But the important thing is, just because those big ones, maybe you're spending a large portion of those for your ad spend, at first you maybe just lower the bids on those specific search terms and keywords so that you can get bid on the longer tail ones that you'll probably win customers on at first. So patience, this is super important. Monitor your campaigns at a distance, right? Don't overcheck your campaigns. Let me say that again. Don't overcheck your campaigns. So you want to monitor them at a distance, give your campaigns time to gain impressions. So I kind of like to think of this as, think of it like a 401k or a retirement fund, right? I have a friend who, as he got his first real job and as he was investing in his 401k for the first time, he was checking it every single day to see how his stuff was doing. And I was like, man, you're going to drive yourself crazy because it's not about how much it goes up in one day or how much it goes down in one day. It's about over time, over the course of your investment in it, how it trends, because those are more conservative that you're going to learn more about, and you won't be able to make good data decisions based on 24 hours worth of movement. You want to make your decisions based on a year's worth of movement, 2 years worth of movement, etc. With sponsored ad products campaigns, you're going to be tempted as soon as you start running them, check them every minute, every 5 minutes. But in actuality, you want to like take a step back and give it a week. Just say, okay, it might be if I'm spending $10 a day, I'm just going to invest $150 in this next week, and I'm going to come back to it, and I'm going to make decisions that I'm going to get paid. I'm paying for data. I'm going to use that data to make next week better, to make my listing better, and move on from there. So the simple system, again, and kind of review, is determine your target ACOS, right? Use your business, what your business goals are to determine your target ACOS. Sometimes that's going to be your cost of, just your profit margin. Sometimes it's going to be more than your profit margin if you're willing to invest in kind of growing your market share. You're going to structure your campaigns for success, right? You're going to have multiple ad groups, broad, phrase, and exact. And then, like I say, I like to add a auto-targeting campaign on there as well get the data. Then you use profitable keywords and search terms, right? Make sure that you are able to use those search terms, move them over to keywords, and really optimize those, have a winning campaign. Optimize bids to drive traffic. And so then from there, we can kind of say, like I said, if maybe you're spending a lot of money on this one keyword, you don't want to completely remove all bids on it, but definitely don't want to spend all of your money on some of those higher ones. And then check campaigns only once or twice a week. So that sounds simple, right? It kind of is. Like I said, it is a lot, but I think that as you kind of start to dig into it, it makes it a lot easier. But I do have a couple pitfalls that I want to talk about before we kind of wrap up here. So here's 4 common pitfalls. One second. So here are the common pitfalls I like to talk about that we see on a daily basis at Sellerlabs. Using irrelevant keywords. So this is when you're spending a lot of money on keywords that you think are working without checking back to see if the data is actually telling you if it's right. So you're letting your gut lead you. And I talked earlier about it's kind of a little bit of intuition, and then letting the data show you if your intuition was right. Well, this is just completely trusting in the intuition, right? So surely it must come, saying, oh, I think this is what my product is. Surely it'll work. Surely it'll convert. And then you're spending all your money on it, and you're getting these impressions and clicks, but no one's converting, right? So maybe it's just not as relevant as you thought. It's caused by not digging into your user search terms. Second. Okay. Auto-targeting cruise control. So how many of you turn on the cruise control in your car and then go to sleep? No one, right? Because if you did, you would have a wreck. And so if you turn on auto-targeting campaign, right, and just leave it on cruise control, you're going to have a wreck of your account, right? Like you're going to spend way too much money, right? You're not going to know any of the data. You're paying for all this data from Amazon. Why wouldn't you use it, right? So that's what these auto-targeting campaigns are for. So you can't just put it on cruise control and then leave. No, you can't just run an ad and hope for the best to happen and use that. You got to use the data that you're paying for. So you got to dig in and use the search terms from these auto-targeted campaigns, move them into manual campaigns, and then you want to regulate the bids on non-successful keywords. So that's auto-targeting cruise control. Bids too low. So this is not being competitive enough with the bids for the results you want to see, right? This is going back to your business goals. Many people start with their bids too low conservatively, and they don't get the data they want, right? It's all about how much data do I need to get, how quickly am I willing to get it, and what am I willing to pay to get that data as quickly as possible. If you're not willing to pay to get that data quickly, then you have to be okay with getting it a little bit more slowly. You have to be more okay with the process, the first iteration of process is maybe taking you 2 or 3 weeks to get to the point where you can start making decisions rather than one. And that's just the way it is. So being a little more aggressive and placing your bid on the higher range of suggested bids will provide you with more data in a short amount of time. So if you want to be aggressive and make decisions quickly, that's fine. You can do that. But you have to be willing to pay for it, right? And the final one is checking too often, right? This is like such a common pitfall. Like I said, people just get so excited. I remember when I started my first ad campaign, I was just like so pumped and like wanting to see how many clicks I had. Okay, it's been 20 minutes. Have I got any more clicks? Like, I'm going to get more sales. And you're just like, you're suffocating your ads, and you're going to make more impulsive decisions because you're too in the moment. You need to take a step back, say objectively, is this working? Is this not working? Based on the number of clicks that I have, based on the amount that I've spent on it. And you need to provide it time to get usable data for you to make these decisions on, these metrics on. So, pitfalls and their solutions. 1, using irrelevant keywords. The solution to that is use profitable keywords in their user search terms. 2, having auto-targeted campaigns on cruise control. So you need to dive into your auto-targeting campaigns and find successful terms. 3, keeping your bids too low. So you need to focus your spending on keywords that are performing well. 4, checking your campaigns too often. And that's monitoring your campaigns at a distance and kind of giving it some time. So that's kind of spam in a nutshell, right? Spam in a can, if you will. So that's your system, process, and metrics. If you put those 3 things into place, you're going to be way more successful than just kind of going into it blind. And I would encourage you guys, Spam plus Ignite, which is our tool, our sponsor product management tool. Spam plus Ignite equals success. And so you can kind of learn some more. I put together a blog post for you guys, which is 6 questions that every Amazon seller should be asking for better PPC campaigns. And so it's a really in-depth article, really cool. And you can see how to get started with Ignite there as well. We dig into these 6 questions that every Amazon seller should be asking for better campaigns. And yeah, it's a really cool ad. And so we can kind of take a look at it here and start to see what some of those look like and see the offer that Barbara and we've got set up for you. So,
okay, well, slow down. What is Ignite? You mentioned, excuse me,
Yeah.
You mentioned Ignite a couple of times. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so Ignite's our sponsor product and PPC advertising tool on Amazon to manage your ad spend on Amazon. So it's a really cool state-of-the-art tool that will give you everything from the ability to look at all of this in a much more easy manner. It gives you all your reports that are kind of obscured and hidden in Amazon, and all your data percentages that you might have to dig out yourself. Gives it to you in one place. As well as that, it gives you the ability to it gives you suggestions. So it says, hey, based on the amount of data that you've gotten in the last week, we think you should move this keyword you should move this from broad to phrase, or from phrase to exact. Or, hey, take this search term and make a new campaign with it. Or, hey, you should raise your bid to 50 cents because you're not getting as many impressions as you want based on the successfulness of this. So it's a really cool tool.
Okay, so awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe you could and call me. I'm a pretty basic pay-per-click buyer. So I'm embarrassed to tell you I have no idea how to download my keyword report.
Yeah.
I swear I don't know where it is.
Yeah, so that's in...
I can't be the only person to have this problem, right?
Yeah, in Seller Central, and I don't have an account pulled up, otherwise I'd just show you. I believe it's in, and don't quote me on this.
Is it under advertising or is it under reports?
It'd be under advertising. And then there's like
I was looking under reports, trying to find it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what you click on under advertising?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So you know what would be really helpful if you could take some screenshots. I mean, I know it's not good to log into somebody's seller account and, share that in a webinar, but if there's a way you could take just a couple of screenshots saying step ABC to get to that report, I'd love to kind of tack that onto this webinar, or maybe I'll make it a download or something.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can make it a download and on the Deal Diva page here. What was the link to get to this blog post?
Yeah, the link is sellerlabs.com/dealdiva.
Okay, so sellerlabs.com/dealdiva. And we'll find a way to get that, because that little piece right there is going to help me be better at doing the really basic ads I do now.
Totally.
Because I'm sad to say that I'm also the one who puts on automatic targeting, and I just let it run and forget about it. And
absolutely, it's easy to do, right? And I will say all those reports and all that information that you can get is also available through Ignite. So a great way to do it is just to start that 30-day trial of Ignite. If you don't even want to like learn how to do it that way, that's cool too.
No, I'm going to get into Ignite. I think I believe in, our time is pretty much the only resource. Even your health, you can kind of get back most of the times, but you cannot get back your time ever. So I'm very big on having processes and tools and systems that, I don't want to be an expert at doing ads. Totally. I don't. I have other things I'm doing that I'm better suited for, that are my natural talents. So I know that they're important and I need to get them done and do them right. Not just get them done, but do them right. So I would rather, use a tool like Ignite or a service like Ignite. So I'm going to get in and do the trial and be in there. So if anybody has any questions in going through the process with me, I'm not going to be able to answer your questions on how to do the ads right out of the gate, because I'm not the expert, but we'll figure it out together, right? With Sellerlabs help.
So and I definitely think that like the important thing is starting with a lot of people say, well, should I just do I have to have all this information going in and like have a really sophisticated process at first? And the answer is no, you don't. Like running an auto-targeted campaign is a great place to start, right? If you've got an optimized listing, then you've done a lot of the hard work.
Yeah, because you were talking about doing ads for where you're grouping like products together and like colors together of different products, something. And I just want to have one ad to one listing that I can walk through the process and see that I can actually make this work for my Amazon business.
Totally.
And then kind of scale up from there. So don't get overwhelmed, guys, if you're like me and you're just getting started with ads. You don't have to go from 0 to 150 miles an hour right out of the gate. You can do it in stages, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And so start with just one product and get your legs a little bit. Run an auto-targeted campaign. Let it run for a week or so. Put a $10 budget, $20 budget, whatever you feel comfortable with a day. Let it see what happens. And then you dig into those user search terms and then just say, okay, well, this one had 10 clicks and 3 conversions. Let's take that and make a manual campaign with it, because that one's working, right?
Oh, like that's the next step.
Right. That keyword, right? Like apple slicer. I spent $10 on apple slicer over the last week for 10 clicks and 3 of them converted. That's obviously something that's relevant. Let's take that, make a new campaign. And if I'm converting 1/3 of people who come through from it, right, I'm probably willing to say, if I'm paying $1 and making, $5 or whatever it works out to be,
right.
I'm probably willing to say, if I can put a dollar in and get $4 back, I'm willing to do that as many times as you'll let me, right?
Sure.
And so that's what the goal of these auto-targeted campaigns is to find those points where we say, oh, like this is what the points where I'm making money, right? These are the words that people want to see. And then if I don't have that word in my listing, maybe I need to add it to my listing, right? Maybe I need to move apple slicer. Maybe it was in my bullet points, but not in my title. But based on how people are converting, maybe I need to move.
Or maybe use the word, the phrase apple cutter in an ad, but it's not on your listing, but it's converting.
Yeah, maybe you need to be an apple cutter.
Ads are driving traffic from that. I understand. Okay. Hey,
yeah, and
take us to that page so we can tell us about Ignite. How is this tool going to help us?
Totally. Yeah. So let's go to ignite.sellerlabs.com. So Ignite, just like what you were talking about, the goal of Ignite is to help you. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one.
It's okay.
And that's not the marketing page.
That's okay. And again, guys, anytime you're learning something new, there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve and a frustration. Mm-hmm. Just keep powering through. Don't give up early. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So Ignite is here to help you save time, right? So we've built this really intelligent suggestions tool. And I think that's the biggest thing for people who are first getting started, right? Because you're kind of maybe, like you said, you're struggling, can't even remember, and I can't even remember how to download all the reports, let alone what to do with all the numbers within the reports.
Yep.
And so our tool automates those suggestions for you. So we say, hey, here's all the data that you've gotten, right? Let us streamline this for you. Don't spend 10 hours trying to crunch these numbers in Excel. Like here's the point of reference that you would have gotten to, right? That you should do this thing. You should move this to a negative keyword because you spent $20 on it last week and nobody bought it, right?
Okay, I just had an idea, which I'm sure is not, I'm sure it's not novel, but it isn't for me. So for those of us who are sourcing wholesale and we have to pitch brand owners, why would you let us manage your listings, and why would you let us buy from you and resell your stuff on Amazon? Then what I can say is, well, hey, look, we are able to do all these things that are on this sales page. Totally. I don't actually have to know how to do them. But as a user of Ignite, I can offer that as a service to those brand owners, charge them more than I'm paying for the tool.
Yeah.
Right? So even if you're not willing to use it on your, on your own ads, you could use this in your toolbox when you're going to brand owners and saying, hey, we can help you do this with your listings.
Totally.
Make sense?
Totally.
Cool. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's like, the big thing, right, is like being able to like save your time and you not having to become an expert on this to be able to do it, right? We want you to be proficient but not an expert, right? We want you to be
another thing I hear from folks is they say, well, I can't tell a brand owner that I know how to do XYZ or optimize a listing or do any of this stuff because I don't know how to do it. So you're never going to know how to do everything. You're not supposed to. So you find people like I found Sellerlabs and Scope and Jeff and Tyler. You find people are smarter than you are and more skilled at whatever it is you want to offer. And then you're basically arbitraging that skill. You all know what that word is because we started with retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. So you're just finding people who do it better than you. You're selling it and you're taking the spread, right? And you're managing that relationship between the brand owner and that service. Does that make sense? So don't let the fact that you don't know how to do everything keep you from offering different types of services to brand owners on your website and in your pitches to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what I always tell people is like, especially when it comes to Amazon, like chances are you as an audience member now, even just after this, like, brief 45-minute talk, infinitely more about advertising on Amazon than a lot of the people you're talking to, right? Like
here are the words that I say. And I basically said this throughout the webinar, at the beginning of the webinar, I'll say it again now, is, I know I'm good at certain things. I'm really good at certain things, and we all have our superpowers, and other things I have an interest in, but I don't have that fire for it. So I will go find people who are smarter than me and offer their services to whoever needs them.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So you don't have to know it all, guys, in order to move forward in your business. Don't let that be an excuse to stop you.
Absolutely. I completely agree. So that's kind of Ignite in a nutshell, right? We'll tell you all these things, help you organize your campaigns, a lot of the kind of stuff that we talked about today. We just make it easier for you to be able to do that. So it's just a really cool.
So instead of me having to dig around in Seller Central and, the reporting area can be a little bit can be a lot confusing. The ads area can be a little bit confusing. I'll tell you a short story. The first time I did, I think it wasn't an ad. It was like 2 years ago when I was playing around with that tab under advertising. And there was something about I want to give 10% off of one product. Or I think it was 50% off of one product.
Yeah.
The stressor word there is one product.
Uh-huh.
So I was all excited. I'd done it. I'd figured it out. So I thought, and I woke up the next morning and a lot of my inventory was gone for across the board, all my products at 50%. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand a lot of the interface, and I was just like power through it, and I didn't, I didn't look for help, and I was like, I'll just get through this, gosh darn it. So it can be really confusing sometimes. in
Yeah.
Seller Central. They don't make I don't think. I think they could do a better job at making the seller-facing interface much more intuitive, but clearly Amazon is focused, as they should be, on their customer-facing interface. And their customers, people who buy their stuff and our stuff.
Yep.
So it can be difficult to navigate, and I suggest I really suggest you get a guide to do that, or you get a service like Ignite. I'm going to get in there and play around with it, and clearly you can't be much more boneheaded than me advertising. So if I can do this, you can do it.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So go ahead and go to sellerlabs.com/dealdiva. Read that article that Tyler put up there, and then dig around. I think that's their blog. Dig around in their different articles and read everything they have, and just get into Seller Central and start playing around with pay-per-click. Sign up for the 30-day trial of Ignite at this sellerlabs.com/dealdiva, and let's learn how to do pay-per-click right together. And you can always reach out to me on my Facebook group. I'm going to go ahead and turn off your share so we can do full screen goodbyes, because we look really miniature on the screen. So you can go over to facebook.com/groups/dealdiva, and you can also go to dealdivawholesale.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter, and you can ask questions in the group, and we'll all support each other and grow together as Amazon sellers, especially, as Amazon grows, we want to grow with them. And where can everybody find you guys? You've got Scope. I always talk about Scope, so tell them where to find Scope.
Sellerlabs.com/scope. And I think there's probably something on sellerlabs.com/dealdiva as well.
There you go. You just go to the Deal Diva one and then click around. And if you guys sign up, I get a little bit of an affiliate commission just for bringing these guys to you. So it's win-win. But I'm happy to help you regardless of whether or not you sign up. So again, go to my Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/DealDiva, DealDiva. And thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us today and sharing your knowledge. You totally rock.
I appreciate it.
Clean off my I never noticed my camera or what. So thank you, Tyler Henderson from Seller Labs and Ignite. I'm Barbara Drazga, the Deal Diva, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.